Let's start with something uncomfortable. You already know what you're supposed to be doing right now. There's a task sitting somewhere, in a tab you haven't closed, on a list you've rewritten 3 times, in the back of your mind where it's been quietly generating guilt for days. And yet, here you are. Not because you're lazy, not because you don't care, possibly because you care too much. That's the part nobody tells you. Procrastination has almost nothing to do with laziness and almost everything to do with emotion. The real mechanism, procrastination, is emotional regulation. When you avoid a task, your brain isn't managing your time, it's managing your feelings. Every task you delay carries an emotional charge. Anxiety about doing it wrong, fear of what it means if you do it right and it still isn't enough, sometimes just a vague sense that the task threatens your sense of self. Whatever the specific emotion, the brain's response is immediate. Move away from the discomfort. And here's the cruel part. It works. The moment you close the tab or decide you'll start after lunch, the discomfort drops. Your nervous system registers relief. That relief is a reward, and rewarded behaviors repeat. This is why procrastination is so persistent even in people who are genuinely motivated and genuinely aware of the cost. The brain isn't making a rational calculation about long-term consequences. It's making an instant calculation about immediate emotional comfort. And in that calculation, avoidance wins every single time. Trap number 1. You don't identify with your future self. When people think about their future selves, the brain regions that activate are the same ones that activate when thinking about strangers. Not themselves, strangers. Which means when you tell yourself you'll handle it tomorrow, you are, at a neurological level, outsourcing the work to someone you don't fully identify with. Today's version of you gets the relief, tomorrow's version gets the consequences, and today's version is doing all the decision-making. This is why deadlines work when nothing else does. A deadline collapses the psychological distance between now and consequences, forcing your brain to treat future you as real and present, which is the only condition under which it starts making decisions on that person's behalf. Trap number 2. The task has become bigger in your head than in reality. The longer you avoid something, the more psychologically large it becomes. Every day you don't start, the task accumulates additional layers. Guilt for not having started, dread of how hard it will be, a growing belief that you've waited so long it's now even harder. The actual task hasn't changed. Your representation of it has become a distorted, inflated version of the real thing. This is why people who finally start something they've avoided for weeks almost always say the same thing. It wasn't as bad as I thought. It never is. But the brain doesn't update that prediction until you force it to confront reality. Trap number 3. Willpower is the wrong tool for this problem. Most advice about procrastination treats it as a willpower problem. Push through, be disciplined, just do it. This fails for a specific reason. Research on what psychologists call ego depletion shows that willpower is a finite resource that depletes with use. The more decisions, resistances, and self-regulations you perform across a day, the less capacity you have for each subsequent one. By the time most people sit down to tackle the thing they've been avoiding, they've already spent the majority of their cognitive and emotional resources on everything else. Trying to tackle your hardest task with your least remaining resources isn't a character problem, it's a structural one. Which is why protecting the first hours of your day for the most important work is one of the most evidence-supported strategies that exists. Not because mornings are magical, but because that's when the resource hasn't been spent yet. What actually works? If procrastination is an emotional problem, the solution isn't force. It's reducing the emotional charge. The most effective approach researchers have documented is called implementation intentions, specific if-then plans that remove the decision moment entirely. Not, I'll work on the project tomorrow, but when I sit down at 9 a.m., I will open the document and write one sentence. The specificity bypasses the moment of deliberation where avoidance inserts itself. The second approach is making the start so small it carries almost no emotional weight. Not work on the presentation, but open the file. Not go to the gym, but put on the shoes. The brain resists beginnings. It rarely resists continuations. Once you're in motion, the emotional charge drops, and the task your brain constructed in avoidance turns out to be nothing like the reality of actually doing it. Neither approach requires you to feel motivated first. Motivation doesn't precede action. For most people, in most situations, it follows it. You don't wait to feel ready. You act, and readiness follows. Procrastination isn't a character flaw. It's a completely predictable response to emotional discomfort, running exactly the way your brain was designed to run. The task you're avoiding isn't too hard. Your brain has just decided, below the level of conscious thought, that the discomfort of doing it outweighs the discomfort of not doing it. Change that calculation by reducing the emotional charge, protecting your best hours, and making the start almost offensively small, and the avoidance loses its grip. Not because you became a different person, because you stopped asking willpower to do a job it was never designed to do. If this finally put a name to something you've been living with, drop a comment below and join our community of people quietly figuring out how their own minds work.